There is a long, long history of rivalry between rabbis and synagogue presidents, and some really good jokes, which another time you'll hear. But that's not been the story of this community. This community has had a history in which rabbis and synagogue leaders have been so very close, dear friends and colleagues. I'd like to ask Nancy Sher-Cohn, who's the president of the community, if she'd share some of her reflections.
Thank you. I want to give you at least some of my reflections on the rabbi and what it means to leadership here. As the newest and youngest member of the board of directors of Valley Beth Shalom in the fall 1985, the last person I thought would lean over at a board meeting and ask to speak to me was Rabbi Schulweis. Truth be known, I was nervous, worried that he would ask me something beyond my intelligence or knowledge, and I would start my participation in leadership looking foolish, superficial, and dumb. I was 34 years old with a child in the toddler program, and this legendary rabbi wanted to speak to me. I hoped I was prepared. Nancy, he said, may I have a ride home? I think you live near me. Now, this is a question I can answer correctly. Yes, I said. Thinking I was off the hook for some deep inquiry and relieved it was just a ride, I relaxed into my seat waiting for the meeting to end and for our short ride home. But of course, while the driving part of the ride home was easy, the discussion with Rabbi Schulweis was not. He began, how does a young woman so busy with lawyering and raising a family make time for synagogue leadership? Simple enough, I thought. I explained how synagogue life was central to my upbringing, and therefore it was natural to include that piece in my daily life, particularly now that we had a son. But he didn't stop there. It's one thing to have a relationship with synagogue, he said, and it's another with God. And so began our relationship and my relationship with Rabbi Schulweis. Being in his presence was always a special and meaningful moment. Even the most mundane tasks become extraordinary when done in his presence. For several years thereafter, I had the pleasure of driving Rabbi Schulweis home from each board meeting, and matters we discussed on those short rides home often became the subject of sermons and high holiday speeches. I realized that he was using our conversations and the conversations with so many others as a laboratory for new ideas he wanted to explore and discuss before they made the light of day in an important speech many months or years later. I often wondered why Rabbi Schulweis was a pulpit rabbi, given his brilliance as a philosopher, writer, and teacher. He was so well suited to lead the seminary, so why would he waste his time on regular folks and mundane matters of day-to-day synagogue life? Over the many years I have been in leadership at Valley Beth Shalom, I learned the answer to that question. Because here he could make a difference, and he could make a difference in the lives of Jewish families. And we were the laboratory for his own ideas, a place he could test his theories and make his plans to change the course of Jewish synagogue life. Valley Beth Shalom has been gifted with many great leaders, all of whom have risen to leadership because they were moved by Rabbi Schulweis and wanted to be part of his experimentation. He was part father figure. We all wanted to please him. He was a teacher who guided us through daily life. He was an intellectual who moved us, and he raised our spirits. He was sensible. He was the strength to lean on in challenging times. He was the man you wanted by your side during troubling times. Actually, in the face of strong, successful people, he was the ones people wanted to follow. To have a relationship with Rabbi Schulweis was to have a relationship with God, because through his wisdom, you obtain the tools by which to live a meaningful life. I was disappointed when those rides home ended years ago. It's not often one can have private moments with such a teacher and a man of goodness. But I know my experience with him was not unique, and that is what made him so special. He developed a congregation full of families who have had their own special moments with him and who will, in the coming days, remember their closeness to him. Becoming involved in leadership was a true honor for all who have served, precisely because we were lucky to be in his presence. I know I speak for all the leaders of Valley Beth Shalom when I say that our admiration for Rabbi Schulweis and our own personal experiences with him will help us make Valley Beth Shalom a home for future generations of the Jewish community. With the guidance of Rabbi Feinstein, we begin a new chapter to carry out his legacy. And so we begin. Thank you.
Harvey Keenan is a member of the Shul who cares deeply for the members of this community. Harvey is the guiding spirit behind our project to help veterans here at the Shul, and because of his inspiration this year, Valley Beth Shalom collected 10,000 pairs of socks for veterans who are homeless and living in our community. Harvey has a poem he'd like to share, please.
May I share one Harold story? Okay. Many years ago, Phyllis and I drove the rabbi up to, I think it was either Ramah or Brandeis, I don't remember anymore, but we were driving up, and the rabbi and I, being both from the Bronx, were chatting, and my father was a boxer, and Rabbi loved boxing, so we got into this great conversation, and I said, wow, this is terrific. So we get to our destination, and Rabbi gets out, and I get out, Phyllis gets out, and I said, wow, we had this wonderful conversation. Is it okay if I call you Harold? He put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, Harvey, call me Rabbi. I never forgot that. But he was a true friend to my wife and myself, and over these past high holidays, Rabbi Schulweis, as you all probably remember, was not able to deliver his sermon as his vocal cords were weak. He had to write a sermon and have one of the rabbis read it. And at that time, I wrote this to him, and I entitled it, I Will Always Hear Your Voice. I asked Malka if he read it, and she told me that he read it and that he cherished it. And I'm going to read it to you now. When I am alone with my thoughts in meditation, I hear your voice. When I am inspired to do acts of tikkun olam, repair the world, and tikkun atzmi, repair the soul, I hear your voice. When the world is full of chaos and evil, I search for goodness, and I hear your voice. When I embrace the stranger, the Christian, the Muslim, the non-believer, I hear your voice. When I visit the elderly and comfort the mourners, I hear your voice. When I am with a client in the counseling center, I hear your voice. When my grandchildren call me Zeta, I hear your voice. When I share my dreams, my fears, my joy, my sadness with my wife, my children, and my grandchildren, I hear your voice. When I am a witness to my beautiful wife, daughters, and granddaughters lighting the Shabbat and holiday candles and singing the blessings, I hear your voice. I will always hear your voice. Thank you.
And one more president of the congregation, Mrs. Elaine Gill, please.
Just a few random thoughts, because so many eloquent words have been said, you don't need to hear mine. But I just had something that I thought I would like to share. And the great shidduch, the partnership that existed between our rabbi and the congregation, the timing was perfect. Rabbi Schulweis came to us as we were in desperate need of a new rabbi and a lasting rabbi. And in us, in the congregation, he found an intelligent, open group, seemingly just waiting for this perfect match. And then, each of us eager to learn. And then, if you were one of the lucky ones, he tapped you. Come into my office. I have an idea, and I'd like to share it with you, and I'd like you to be in charge. A discussion would ensue. You listened to his great idea. Together, you laid out a plan, and then, basically, it was yours to follow through. He trusted you, and believe me, you did your work as you'd never done before because you wanted to be worthy of that trust. We all experienced this, those that were fortunate to be tapped like that, and there were a lot of us who did his special projects. The second thing I just want to say is Ron Wolfson spoke of his humorous side, and there are a couple things that come to mind. One in particular was at the roast for Judge Joe Wapner. And I don't know how many people were there, but if anyone who was there will remember, Rabbi Schulweis preceded the comedian who was hired to speak. It was Jack Carter, and here's Rabbi Schulweis giving the most hilarious talk, and Jack Carter is going, rip, rip, throw that one away, throw that one. He says, who is this man? You know, and his timing was impeccable. Third thing, there's two other things. After Rabbi Wolpe spoke so beautifully the other night, David and I saw him in the hallway. He said, I forgot to say something. He said, I had started to hear of this rabbi, and I met him, and I went to my father, and his father was a great rabbi, Gerald Wolpe, and I asked him, what do you know about this man? And his reply was, and I'm quoting Rabbi Wolpe, he's the most talented person I've ever met. And then something personal. My son, Larry, is a member of B'nai David and was asked to write something about Rabbi Schulweis. Rabbi Kanevsky knew that Larry grew up here, and he wrote a beautiful piece, and I want to read the last paragraph. He says, one final personal story, because he said, not quite as nicely as everybody, he said, paid a beautiful tribute to him, but this one. One final personal story. Years ago, my family and I were at a vigil at the home of Ruth and Judea Pearl, Danny Pearl's parents. On that terrible Sunday afternoon, the FBI confirmed that Danny had in fact been murdered weeks before. Rabbi Schulweis, who lived a block away, quickly ran over and organized a memorial service. When the time came for the El Mole, he pulled me aside and asked me to lead. I was dumbfounded and felt absolutely incapable of fulfilling that request. Rabbi Schulweis put two hands on my shoulders and simply asked me when I would ever have the opportunity to do a mitzvah like that in my entire life. He told me that insecurity was a human trait that created the sincerity required of a shaliach tzibur. I acceded to his request, and as you might imagine, that was one of the most powerful moments of my life, not just because of the horror of that day, but probably more because at that moment, I really felt like an adult that Rabbi Schulweis respected. For me, that was and remains a powerful validation. Baruch Dayan Emet, Master, my son Larry. Thank you.
I'd like to ask our friend Professor Jerry Bubis to share a moment of reflection.
Thank you. Rabbi Feinstein pulled a Schulweis on me tonight. I walked in here and he said, would you like to say a few words? So you're going to get a few words. I'm going to go back to something less profound in this sense. Many of you know that our family and the Schulweis family were together in Oakland and met each other in 1953. Malka, the brilliant supervisor of Rabbi Schulweis, was a great friend of ours. I want to just tell one quick story. I went onto the board, and I also taught in the Sunday school. During many conversations with Harold, we ended up discussing the role and place of synagogues and centers. At the time, I worked in a Jewish community center, and we agreed to each write an article and have it printed in the then Reconstructionist magazine. When it came out and I read it, I said to myself, what a fool if you ever think of trying to have something in the same magazine that you know Harold Schulweis is writing. You're stupider than I thought. And I learned from there the brilliance, the insight, the absolute creativity and imagination of how to wind Judaism and bind Judaism to ethical action. He was a remarkable man. He was a remarkable friend. As with you, I will miss him. I love Malka, and I love her husband's memory. Baruch Dayan Emet.
Thank you. Buzzy Bookman is another former president of the congregation. Share a word of memory, please. Move this up a little bit. There you go.
One of the many areas where Rabbi Schulweis influenced my life was in his meeting his pastoral responsibilities. It was devastating for me when my father, he had a slight stroke and he went from being a young man to an old man. And it was just very hard for me to deal with it. And Rabbi Schulweis called me every night, and we worked together and worked through it. And that one of the many, many ways in which he influenced my life. I was honored to introduce Rabbi Harold Kushner at the sanctuary of Valley Beth Shalom when he said that Rabbi Schulweis, in his opinion, was the most influential pulpit rabbi in the history of conservative Judaism. And I think we would agree. My last comment, I never called Rabbi Schulweis Harold. If Rabbi called him Malka, how could I do anything different, right? But I remember we went on a board retreat at Camp Ramah, and we had an icebreaker. And we'd go around, and so everyone would get to know each other. We'd say our name and a food that began with the same letter as our name, Buzzy Banana, okay? And then we'd go back and say everyone else's name with the fruit, the food. And it got to Rabbi Schulweis, and he said, Harold Ham. And then as we went around the circle, everyone had to say everyone's name, and they had to say Harold Ham. And it got to Judy Cotton. And Judy Cotton got to Rabbi Schulweis, and she's supposed to say Harold Ham, and she said, I can say ham. It was an important story to me. I love you, Malka. Yeah.
Some years ago, as a tribute and a gift to the rabbi, the synagogue renamed its day school, the Harold M. Schulweis Day School. Today, the school has 262 kids, and it's one of the most respected Jewish day schools in the country. The head of that day school is Mrs. Sheva Locke. Sheva, come up, please.
"13 years ago, when I became the head of the Harold M. Schulweis Day School, Rabbi Schulweis called me into his office. When I sat down, He said, "How's everything going, Shmona?" I said, "My name is Sheva." He chuckled very loudly and said, "I know, it was just a joke." We both laughed together. However, he called me often Shmona in years to come, in a very loving, respectful, and caring way. He put me at ease and provided the school with a compass of kavanah for the staff, children, and parents who attended the school named after him. I knew that Tzadok Schulweis, not only as a visionary, mentor, prophet of social justice, and teacher, but as a sensitive Ben Adam that was going to be my partner for years to come. We discussed issues and brainstormed visions. He uplifted and celebrated our teachers, parents, and students to carry out our vision of what a Jewish education in modernity entailed. He opened doors that led to greater possibilities. Malka, the Schulweis family, friends, and colleagues, I am honored tonight to speak about how Harold M. Schulweis's vision of Judaism through the Harold M. Schulweis Day School has shaped the lives of generations of students and their families in profound and deep ways. 36 years ago, Rabbi Schulweis sat in a living room with a few of his congregants and declared that he wanted to start a day school at the shul. Roz Gadan of blessed memory and Colette Siegel, the founders of the day school, remembered that conversation. He said, "If you're going to do something meaningful in your life, let this be it." And so the day school was born. Howard Levine was the first president, with his wife Irene by his side. The day school was important because it was a place where his vision of living a Jewish life in a modern world could be realized. A child who attended the Harold M. Schulweis Day School would live Judaism every moment, every hour, every day, every month, and every year, from kindergarten to 6th grade. If they also attended the infant, toddler, and preschool, they would be immersed in Jewish thought, traditions, rituals, calendar, arts, music, literature, politics, and community for the first 13 years of their lives. They could be Jewish in every space and realm of their lives. They were not only Jewish in the sanctuary or camp or Israel trips or their homes, but now through their peer groups, learning groups, family, friends, teachers, and entire childhood. The education and the environment could shape a person's character, the way that they saw the world, and inspire a person to become an active member of a dynamic community within the school, VBS, and to the world at large. This would all be done through a Jewish lens. All subjects, math, science, technology, history, Hebrew, Judaica, the arts, orchestra, and even athletics were now approached through Jewish eyes with Jewish thinking. He envisioned the day school as a place where issues could be debated and Jewish identities and deep personal connections to Israel forged. The day school, as part of VBS Synagogue, became a Kihila Kadosha, a holy community on a mission. Prior to this period and vision, conservative Jewish families did not have the option of day schools. The idea was revolutionary for non-Orthodox Jews. Over the years, he had many innovations that were translated by the day school, but I'll only highlight a few tonight. He opened pathways for girls and women in Jewish life. He declared the school to be egalitarian, where both boys and girls would wear kippot and have equal access to all learning. I asked Rabbi Schulweis, what should I tell parents who didn't grow up with this minhag? He told me to ask them if their child could learn math by sitting in the back of a room and not working out math problems, or learn to read without a book, or learn to write without a pencil? If a girl does not have the opportunity to experience what it means to be Jewish in an equal way, how will she ever know what it means to be Jewish for her? And he was right. One morning, while I was greeting parents in the parking lot, a kindergartner, Shayna, came up to me and told me that this day was the best day of her life. When I asked her why, she said that her parents were making her a kippah for her Hebrew naming ceremony that evening. Rabbi Schulweis saw this inequality early on and rectified it so both girls and boys could learn and read Torah, lead services, and perhaps one day become Judaic scholars, leaders in the community, or rabbis themselves. Rabbi Schulweis also had a vision of a school as a family, where teachers, parents, and students would really get to know each other well and care for each other in ways that include the spiritual, so the personal and Jewish connections between home and school would be fluid. When Jeannie Blank died, Rabbi Schulweis made a connection between Ron Blank and me so that we could honor Jeannie's memory. She was a teacher, and Rabbi Schulweis said that teaching was the holiest profession. So together we created the Jeannie Blank Family Camp, where all the third grade day school families, the third grade teachers and staff and administration could come together for a 3-day Shabbaton to build community at Brandeis Bardeen in Simi Valley. We celebrated our 12th family camp this year, fulfilling Rabbi Schulweis's ideal of Chavurah and Kihila Kedusha. The power of seeing parents bless their children throughout the weekend alongside their peers, teachers, with laughter, talent shows, sports, and deep discussions on Jewish life transforms the third grade every year from a regular third grade class to a chavruta that supports, loves, cares, and partners with each other for a lifelong journey with Judaism as its vehicle of transformation. This is because of his vision. He envisioned the school as a place where children and youth lived tikkun olam. His Torah, that God is within each of us, is the core of this vision. As a result, at the Harold M. Schulweis Day School, we start by teaching every child that they are created b'tselem Elohim, in God's image, that God is inside each person, and that they come to know God through listening to their conscience, having their inner God guide their actions, and through Judaism, making a difference for Jews and all other people in the world. After all, this is the Harold M. Schulweis Day School. Over the years, numerous day school students chose Rabbi Schulweis as their Jewish hero so that they could learn about his Torah. I loved watching him talk to even very young children. He would talk to a child authentically, conveying to them that they mattered and could lead the world. I recall he told one child in an interview, "Many rabbis tell children that they're the future, but you're the present. You can make a difference now, and you can teach your parents and grandparents and bring them along with you." He left each child with a sense of purpose and mission, that their voice mattered, that their inner voice was holy, and that their holy actions made them proud to be Jewish. I know that he was instrumental in inspiring many of our students and teachers to take community and worldwide leadership. He hoped they would leave his day school with the feeling that Judaism infiltrated every pore of their existence and was a way of life. This is done through his vision of an immersive approach, moment to moment, day to day, month to month, year to year, throughout their childhood. In many ways, I see his vision similar to the commandment in the Ve'ahavta, that we talk about Judaism when we wake, when we walk, when we talk, with all our heart and with all our soul, and in every moment of the day. He wanted the students at the Harold Schulweis Day School to make a difference in the world. As you may be aware, Rabbi Schulweis started the Mazon program, a national program to feed the hungry. But he also walked the talk by starting a food bank right here at Valley Beth Shalom. Our students see the food in the shul and in their school every day, every week. They lead a food drive in the school throughout the year. Every Friday, they collect the cans from the classrooms and announce the can count before the school at our Kabbalat Shabbat gathering. The fourth graders and their parents volunteer at Sova on Sundays. Over the last few years, our school has donated over 4,000 cans a year and over 2,000 books to Sova. This year, I was approached by a day school parent, Dana Hadel, who asked me if we could dedicate one day a month where we could bring fresh fruits and vegetables to school to give to Sova. So on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, our families brought over 500 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables for Sova, starting a new tradition in the school for each Rosh Chodesh to come. This is living Judaism as part of a day-to-day way of life. This was the blessing of Rabbi Schulweis. Rabbi Schulweis insisted on honoring the elderly and learning from them. Day school students have come to know older adults as wise, caring individuals that have a rich history through their visits to the Jewish home and leading a Seder there each year. Last spring, our day school rabbi, Avi Taff, was asked to teach at one of the Hazak learning sessions for seniors right here at VBS. Rabbi Avi decided to bring our fifth graders with him for the experience and set up a text study in Chevruta between the fifth graders and the Hazak members. The Torah study was so vibrant and meaningful to all that we have now created a monthly text study this year for our students and Hazak members to learn together, each generation learning from each other in interactive and personal ways. Rabbi Schulweis loved Israel. He encouraged the school to support Israel through times of trouble and to have personal relationships. This includes supportive activities such as buying an ambulance for Mogen David Adom in Israel, but most importantly, through deep, long-lasting personal relationships. 12 years ago, we became partners with an elementary school in Tel Aviv, where we have yearly exchanges with both schools. We wanted our students to get to know the real Israel, get to live the life of an Israeli, and to understand how we are all connected as Jews. Some of the Israeli girls who came to VBS witnessed girls having a bat mitzvah for the first time and wanted one as well. We are proud to say that several of them have become a bat mitzvah in Israel. Rabbi Schulweis's role in starting the Jewish World Watch, along with Janice Kaminer-Resnick, provided the opportunity for our students to learn and care about the genocide in Africa. Rabbi Schulweis told our students over and over that they have to get involved because of conscience. After the Holocaust, we say never again. So don't stand idly by. Our students have led the way by drumming at the opening of each Jewish World Watch to end genocide in Darfur. We have a picture of our students with Rabbi Schulweis and Malka here. They also mobilized their families to walk and raise significant funds. But the real story is what has happened since they have graduated from VBS in 6th grade. Our students have become leaders in their high schools and colleges and made the Jewish World Watch relevant to this generation. Many of them cite the Tzadok and their many experiences in his school as their inspiration for doing so. I want to share one final story about Rabbi's impact on the day school that sums it all up. Nicole, when she was in 2nd grade, wrote, "When I become president, I will celebrate Shabbat in the White House and feed all the people in the world." Over the past 36 years, Rabbi Schulweis has opened the doors of possibility for children like Nicole to dream and turn those dreams into reality. I would like to end with a blessing that we say every Kabbalat Shabbat in the school before announcing the Sova can count. As your legacy, dear Rabbi, we will continue what you have taught us, that there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow, and each of us must take a role in bringing this light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, shenatan lanu hizdamnut letaken et ha'olam. Blessed are you, God, who gives us the opportunity to mend the world. Amen. Zichrono livracha.
Thank you, Sheva. I know that there are many dozens of people who have stories and would love to share them, but one final speaker is Elaine Burke. Where's Elaine? And then we will share the Kaddish together. Please. Thank you. Just pull the mic down.
My late husband, Lou, who a few of you may remember, was on the board when Rabbi Schulweis came. Until that point, VBS didn't have a great reputation as far as rabbis were concerned. And when he came in the house, I said, well? And he said, well, we'll see if we like this one. As it turned out, not only did we like this one, is he and Lou became friends. And Lou was a fisherman. Every summer, once a week, he went albacore fishing out of San Diego, and Rabbi said he would like to go. They get on the boat, and Lou said to these guys with whom he fished for 20 years, this is my rabbi, Rabbi Schulweis. Ha ha ha, Lou Burke and his jokes. And they ignored them most of the trip. But sometime during the trip, somebody got into a conversation with Rabbi, and he yelled out, hey guys, he really is a rabbi. So a few of them talked. As it turned out, it was the best fishing day of the season. All summer long, they drove Lou crazy. When are you bringing the rabbi back? So Lou said to me, they think that Rabbi Schulweis had divine interference with the fish.
I took his class in seminary on modern Jewish thought. I wrote a paper on Martin Buber's concept of community, and he gave me a B. And to make it worse, he never gave me back the paper. So I don't know why I got a B. That was in 1975. I came to work here in 1993. One morning, he comes in the office with a brown envelope, and he puts it on my desk. I opened the envelope. It was my paper. He said, I found this in my files. I think you might want it. I flipped to the back page. It said, good exposition of Buber's thought, insufficient critique, B. So I sat down and I wrote him an answer. And I left it on his desk. I said, you were right. I was so taken with Buber's thought, I celebrated Buber's thought, I forgot to critique him at the end of the paper. So here's the missing critique. Buber modeled his notion of community on the Hasidic communities where he grew up with his grandfather. The Hasidic community is like the spokes of a wheel. Hasidim all gathered around the powerful, charismatic personality of the Rebbe, of the leader in the middle. That was Buber's notion of community, that the loyalty of Hasidim to their Rebbe and the loyalty of the Rebbe to the Hasidim would create a circle of community. What Buber didn't understand sufficiently is that there is a higher level of being a Rebbe, a higher level of rabbinic leadership. When the teacher turns the Hasidim to each other, and the members of a community turn to face each other, and they locate the presence of God not only in the heart and the wisdom of their teacher, but in the experiences, the collective wisdom, the shared moments of life that they share with one another, so that the rim of the wheel becomes firm as a circle of love and a circle of wisdom. This is a more mature sense of what community can be. And this was missing from Buber. I wrote at the bottom, now would you reconsider that B? And this is what the rabbi taught us. We are deeply grateful to him, deeply grateful for his love, his inspiration, his leadership, his spirit, his strength. And we see the presence of God in the fire in his soul. But he taught us to see it in each other and to hold each other and to know the spirit of community in the love and the care and the connections we have with one another. That's the community that he taught us to cherish.